Hey everyone, this is Julie, the cancer dietitian. If you're not familiar with me, I am a bona fide expert in oncology nutrition. Not only am I a registered dietitian, which is credentialed by the way, I am a licensed dietitian nutritionist in the state of North Carolina, and I've been a board certified specialist in oncology nutrition for over 10 years now. I am the creator of cancerdietitian.com and the wellness director for Cancer Services, a local nonprofit in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The Cancer Dietitian podcast is for anyone who has faced a cancer diagnosis or provides care for someone who has. So by my calculation and life experience, that's almost everyone. Today's topic is actually my very, very favorite thing to talk about. And when I kicked off this podcast, we started with covering a bunch of cancer nutrition myths because I find that a lot of my clients need to sort of get the myth busting out of the way so that we can clear out the things that maybe they've been misinformed on. And then we get to the parts, which is my favorite, where I talk about nutrition after cancer, what to eat and what to avoid. And so if you're tired of wondering what you should and shouldn't be eating as a cancer survivor or a caregiver or someone just interested in risk reduction, then this episode is for you. I am going to try to be as brief as possible and just get to the down and dirty of what's most important for you to include in your day in terms of food. But there is a lot of confusion about what is quote good and quote bad for cancer survivors to eat. And this episode, we're going to talk about the basics for a healthy diet. And really, it isn't just good for cancer survivors, but it's good for pretty much everybody. So if you're not familiar with my approach to nutrition education, I focus on giving you the most evidence-based information that's available regarding cancer and nutrition. And so it's not just information that I find people need. It's also that the information needs to be put into context. So that's what I try to do. That's because the purpose of having a nutritious diet is to enhance the health and well-being and give you energy to go out and actually enjoy the day and enjoy your life. And I find that many of my clients have heightened anxiety around food choices, and that food anxiety is negatively affecting their well-being. So I aim to give you the most evidence-based information, offer a bottom line message that will help you feel confident and comfortable in whatever food choices you think are best for your situation. So I am not here to guilt you or scare you or should you into any particular way of eating. I am going to present you with the most clear evidence-based information we have and then help you figure out what is the right choice for you. Let's get right into it. The way I'm going to organize this episode, first we're going to talk about what I call the 5 things you need to know about nutrition and cancer. And then we're going to move into what my recommendations are for your daily goals. The 5 things. Number 1, there's no one food or food substance, like a nutrient, that can prevent or cure cancer. Many people get confused about this point is that they've heard, oh, there's a, miracle food. It might be pomegranate. It might be turmeric. It might be whatever the latest fad is. Kale was real popular for a while. The thing is, there's no one food that's going to be magical, and there's no one food that's going to be toxic either. And so it's really a combination of foods in a mostly plant-based diet that we know to be beneficial in maintaining healthy cells. Now, it's not, a guarantee that if you eat a lot of plants, all of a sudden you'll have enhanced health and your cancer will go away and it'll never come back again, because things just in this life are not guaranteed that way. However, we know that about 30 to 40% of cancers could be reduced if people ate healthy and were physically active. And so what I say is, let's put the odds in our favor, try to do the things that help reduce the risk, and because those same things also help us feel well. That's number 2, actually, is that a combination of foods consumed in a mostly plant-based diet plays a really important role in maintaining the health of your cells and your immunity. We'll talk in a little bit about the things that you want to make sure that you include in your day. And then number 3 is that your body prefers to get nutrients from food, not pills. So my bottom line is, don't waste your money on pills, extract, and powdered nutrients. Focus on nutrients in actual food form unless you physically cannot eat food. And in that case, you would need to find an alternate way of getting nutrition. And if you have some sort of deficiency, then that requires supplementation. If you want more information on that, you can check out my podcast on supplements. Number 4, eating is an opportunity to promote your health. So you want to aim to give your body the tools it needs each day. Basically, that's getting a variety of foods and consuming plenty of fruits and vegetables. Again, we will talk about my list of what I recommend for daily intake. Number 5, and this is to help you strike a balance with your motivation to eat healthy. You do not have to be perfect. I think it's really important that you remember that eating should nourish your soul as well as your body. And that healthy eating and health is not an end to itself. The reason that we want good health, the reason we want to eat healthy is to support a good quality of life. And so we don't want our healthy eating pattern to take away from that. And we are actually seeing a lot of people right now that are following eating patterns that are really a detriment to their quality of life. There's even an area around eating disorders where people are overly obsessed with healthy eating, and that's not good for you. I want you to find a balance between nourishing your soul and nourishing your body. We all know what our favorite soul foods are. As Americans, we kind of have an all or nothing mentality, and that can be a detriment. The purpose of having good health is to enjoy life. I usually recommend what is termed as the 80-20 rule. If you are eating to nourish your body 80% of the time and choosing foods that nourish your soul 20% of the time, that's a pretty good balance. The 20% of the time, soul foods or sometimes foods, as Cookie Monster, now calls it, is something, those are the things you enjoy. So for a lot of people, they know what their favorite foods are, and it's just not worth living if you can't have them. For some people, it's bacon. For some people, for me, it's got to include chocolate in it. Finding a good balance is really important when we talk about these things. All right, now we're going to get into what really does it mean to consume a plant-based diet, and when it comes down to the specifics of what you should actually be eating, what are my recommendations? A plant-based diet, it's first important to remember that does not mean you can't have meat. I always recommend that people follow the government's plate guide. I think is pretty good, but basically if you're looking at a circle, and that circle represents your plate, half of your plate would be covered in fruits and or vegetables. A quarter of your plate would be covered in a starchy food. And so that could be a starchy vegetables like potatoes, corn, or peas. It might be pasta. It could be rice. But starches are really important for fueling your muscle cells and your brain cells. And this is why we don't recommend the ketogenic diet, because we know that there are great healthy carbohydrates that are important for your health and your well-being and your body's function. And so the appropriate portion on the plate would be about a quarter of the plate. And ideally, you'd be having whole grains. And then a quarter of your plate is protein. And that's where you get to what I call choose your own adventure. So if you want to be 100% plants only vegan, then you would choose your protein to be only coming from plants. If you want to be a meat eater, then and still have a healthy diet, we would recommend a quarter of your plate coming from whatever meat that you choose. For those of us who enjoy vegan recipes, we enjoy vegetarian recipes, and we also enjoy eating meat. We call ourselves flexitarians. And so the protein on the corner of our plate, or the quarter, is going to come from meat, and sometimes it comes from plants. And so we kind of go back and forth, which I think is the most practical solution for most of us. I think a lot of us like plant proteins like beans, nuts, and seeds, but we also enjoy meat. Sometimes that's convenient. Sometimes somebody else is cooking for us and we just want to eat whatever it is that they're making us. That's what's important when it comes to a plant-based diet. And I know a lot of people use the term plant-based and they mean vegan, but in my case and in the case of evidence-based nutrition recommendations, when you hear a variety of health organizations recommending a plant-based diet, they aren't recommending a vegan diet. They are recommending that you eat mostly plants, but then a quarter of your plate or a third of your plate might have meat on it. All right, so then we are going to get into the daily goals. And this is a list that I came up with. What I did when I've done talks, and I have a webinar on cancerdietitian.com that's called Plant-Based Diets for Cancer Survivors, What's Recommended. And what I did was I went and looked into several healthy eating patterns. Okay, so what I looked at was a Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. I looked at Dr. Weil's anti-inflammatory diet. I looked at the American Institute for Cancer Research and their New American Plate Guide, and then I use the USDA's Plate Guide, which is also very similar to the Harvard's Plate Guide. And what we did, I actually had an intern with me at the time, and we went through each of those healthy eating patterns and we categorized them by what do they recommend a person to eat from each food group each day? And then when we looked at those, we compared, all right, what is it that they all have in common? Because when it comes down to it, there's a lot of different cultures in this world. There's actually a lot of different, eating cultures just in America. And there's no one absolute way that everyone has to eat. And so it's really looking more at the pattern of the types of foods that you include in your day on a regular week. That is the most important. And so we looked at all of those healthy eating guides and we said, well, let's make a list of what they all have in common. And so that's where I came up with my daily goals. These are the things that you can do every day to help keep your body strong and to make sure your nutrient needs are met. Basically, it also focuses on what you need to eat more of, which I find a much more positive way to approach nutrition than to think about all the things that you're not allowed to have, because that is not fun. Absolutely. Top of the list, most important thing that you can do is to consume plenty of fruits and vegetables. When we looked at all of those healthy eating guides, they all recommended somewhere between 4 to 5 cups a day, and that's combined fruits and vegetables. I've seen ones where they break it down where you have 2 cups of fruit and 3 cups of vegetables, but to be honest with you, that amount of fruits versus vegetables is not the most important thing to me. I think you need to figure out which fruits and vegetables you enjoy, make sure they are present in your day and in your mouth and chewed up and swallowed. From a fruit and vegetable standpoint, our goal would be 4 to 5 cups a day, and that's combined, again, fruits and vegetables. The second thing that was on my list for things that you want to include on a daily basis is beans, nuts, and seeds. So having a plant protein at least once a day, whether you're a vegan or not, whether you're a vegetarian or not, it's really important that you get plant proteins. And all of these healthy eating guides included beans, nuts, and seeds on a regular basis. If you think about the Mediterranean diet, those are the types of things that they include. All right, beans, nuts, and seeds on a daily basis. The third thing is 100% whole grains. So again, this is why we do not recommend something like the keto diet or the paleo diet, or sometimes I think Whole30 is very similar where it eliminates your ability to have any kind of grains at all. 100% whole grains are really important sources of nutrients. They have a lot of fiber. And so there's lots of things in them that are good for you. And across the board on all of these healthy eating plans, they recommend that you consume somewhere between 2 and 3 cups per day of whole grains. And ideally, that's 100% whole grains. Sometimes that's not possible. I think the food guide from the US government says make 50% of your grains whole. What I usually recommend for people is, as much as possible, make them 100% whole grains. It says 2 to 3 cups per day. That's cooked grains. So some people think that sounds like a lot, but I think that if you feel like that's a lot, you need to measure a pile of pasta, because a lot of, if you go out to eat and you get a plate of pasta, it's probably going to be 2 cups, right there on that plate. And then, of course, you have breadsticks with it or whatever. For some people, they're getting their entire grain need in one meal, which often also happens with protein. Most people can, the typical American could stand to cut back on the portion of grains. It doesn't mean you have to eliminate them completely. Oh, us Americans, we're so all or nothing. Anyway, so then the next bullet point is protein, which our recommendation would be between 15 and 25 grams at mealtime. I even tell some people, up to 35 grams of protein at a meal would be appropriate. But I find a lot of people actually overdo this on their portions of meat. So typical people could probably cut back. My recommendation for 15 to 25 grams is based on the fact that when you eat plant proteins, it's less concentrated in protein. So the volume of beans that you would eat might only give you 15 or 20 grams of protein. And then a piece of meat that's the size of the palm of your hand, same thickness, no fingers, or also the size of a deck of cards, is about 21 grams of protein. And so that's why we say that's a portion. Most people can stand to cut back on their meat portions and then cut back on their grains or their starches and then double their fruits and vegetables. And that in itself can make a big difference in their healthy eating patterns. And what I say is sometimes that means you're not even changing the foods that you're eating. You're just changing the proportion of foods that you're eating. So really paying attention to that's important. The next thing on my list is fluids. So drinking 64 ounces a day from water, unsweetened tea, and unsweetened coffee. So mostly we want sugar sweetened drinks to be an occasional thing. That could be a sometimes food. Alcohol also just on occasion, a sometimes food. Staying hydrated is important, and you want to get that hydration from water, unsweetened tea, or unsweetened coffee. And then the last thing on the list, which I think is something that a lot of people don't think of, is how do you flavor your foods? So if you can use herbs and spices either instead of salt or in addition to the salt that you're using, that adds more plant nutrients to your plate. And so this is when I think that things like turmeric, I don't recommend that you take them in pill form because, again, your body prefers nutrition in food rather than pill form. But if you can use turmeric or curry as a spice in your food, I think that's great. And things like oregano and basil and rosemary, they're all really good for you. They come from plants. They have plant nutrients in them. And so the more flavor you can get from the herbs and spices, the better off you are. And it gives you more of those plant nutrients. Our goal really is to get as many plants as possible into our day in a way that's delicious to us. For a lot of people, that means using meat as a flavoring, having meat on the plate because it tastes good. If having some steak gets you to eat more broccoli, I'm a fan. So really, it really is something that you need to figure out for yourself. There's no one answer for everyone. It drives me crazy when people go to, I don't know, maybe not so evidence-based practitioners and come away being told, like every person in that office is told to eat a gluten-free and a dairy-free diet. And I'm thinking there's no way that everyone going in there needs that. And so I find that a lot of people, if you step back a little bit, look at the things you like, look at the general healthy eating recommendations and figure out how you can make that pair together in a way that makes eating should be enjoyable. It should mean that you spend time with your friends and family. It should be fun to prepare your favorite recipes. And then find the foods that are delicious to you that you can have some of the time and figure out where you get that good balance. Because I want your healthy eating pattern and your healthy eating program to enhance your health. I want it to not take away from your health and well-being. Let me sum up what we've covered today. On the daily goals, these are things you can do every day to help keep your immune system strong. A plant-based eating pattern is what we're going for, and here is the list of the things that we recommend that you eat more of. Number 1, fruits and vegetables, 4 to 5 cups a day combined. Number 2, beans, nuts, and seeds, so having plant proteins at least once a day. Number 3 is 100% whole grains, anywhere between 2 to 3 cups on average for most people. Number 4 is getting adequate protein. I tell people to aim for anywhere between 15 and 35 grams at meals. Number 5 is fluids, getting 64 ounces a day from water, unsweetened tea, or coffee. And then number 6 is getting extra plant nutrients by using herbs and spices instead of salt-based flavorings. So that's the sum up. If you're interested, I actually have a Survivor Diet email program. You can go on to cancerdietitian.com. In the search box, just search for Survivor Diet. It'll pull up a page where you can enter your email. And then once it's entered, it'll automatically send you a welcome email. And then once a week, you will get one topic around the Survivor Diet recommendations that I have and links to more information about that. So I'll be sure to put that information in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening today. I would love to hear your feedback or suggestions for future topics. And next time, I'm actually going to be sharing a colon cancer series that I recorded for our agency podcast. It's really interesting. I had a lot of fun interviewing different guests who are experts around colon cancer. And so I hope you enjoy those too. Remember, you can find me at cancerdietitian.com and on social media. I'm at Cancer Dietitian on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Share this episode with your friends. Encourage them to subscribe to the Cancer Dietitian podcast, and please send me any questions that you have. You can find me, Julie, at cancerdietitian.com. Thanks, and see you later.